Greetings and welcome to the Truth to Power show. And my name is Beverly D. And I have Ron March here every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You are listening to the Ron March show also. And tonight, Ron is going to be talking about Sojourner Truth. Ron, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. I am here. How are you today, Bev?
Great.
Okay. I have an announcement. Well, I got a couple of announcements.
Okay.
Number one, I have a new website, and the website is ronmarch.com.
Okay.
A new website.
It's not Ron March Show. It's ronmarch.com.
.com. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. My email address is the same. ronmarchshow@yahoo.com.
Okay.
All right. Also, what am I saying? Oh, yeah. The 7th of February. 7th of February. I'm doing the second lecture. The first lecture on the Black History Month.
Okay.
And the lecture is called The Alternative to Black History.
All righty.
Right. And I'm going to deal with a timeline in regards to what we really are up against. And I'm going to tap on it lightly tonight with Sojourner Truth, because we have and let me make sure I have it. We have since we don't read, Bev, we have a major problem in some of our areas and categories. Revision history is one that I want to speak on first, but revision history. And I had a very, very good definition of it. But at the last minute now, it doesn't seem to want to pop up. But anyway, I can give it to you. You know, I talk about hindsight when I be speaking a lot. I speak on hindsight. And hindsight tells us, there we go, I got it. Let me give you the definition of historical revisionism. There you go. Historical revisionism, or revisionist history. Now, that revision is the key word to this. Now, let's use the first definition. In history, historical revisionism is the reinterpretation of orthodox views on evidence, motivation, and decision-making processes surrounding an historical event. Though the word revisionism is sometimes used in a negative way, consent revision of history is part of the normal scholarly process of writing history. Isn't that trickery? And that's historical revisionism. Now, revisionist history carries both positive and negative connotations. Each has its own entry. Historical revisionism is the reinterpretation of orthodox views of evidence, motivations, and decision-making process surrounding a historical event. That's what I had in the first one. Second one is historical revisionism or negativism. Woo! Isn't that something? Either the legitimate scholastic reexamination of existing knowledge about an historical event, or the illegitimate distortion of the historical record such that certain events appear in a more or less favorable light, or alternatively in a practically bad light. Now, think about that for 1 second. you need me to read it again, I shall. But all it is, it's a class of trickery, or as you would say, a spin. Put a spin on history. Put it in a book, and then put it on television. And you'll have to fight one of our Negroes on the street that he heard it on Cronkite, and so it had to be true. You get where I'm going with this, Ben?
Yeah, I get you.
So my position has been in my last months, especially running into a couple of heavyweights, Jonah Bay being one of them, I am questioning everything that I have learned in school and in the Morris Science Temple. I'll just put it that way. Even in the Ouachita Nation, I am revisiting all of the information to try and get a clearer view of what's going on. Last week, was it Saturday? I talked about. I think it was it was Carter G. Woodson. And Carter G. Woodson, it said in the article that he finished high school at 20 years old. No, he entered high school at 20 years old, graduated from a scholastic school, Harvard, with a PhD. Now, stop and think. How's that possible? You see, now they have him in all of our books, W.E.B. Du Bois, and one of the first acts that he made in modern history after his death, he gave all of his writings to Ghana, a library in Ghana, and he asked to be buried in Ghana. So they say.
Mm-hmm.
Now his wife, I saw her. She looks white, and so did W.E.B. Du Bois. Now think about how many of us have studied the works, or so-called works, of W.E.B. Du Bois, and how it's been fixed in our minds that he was an abolitionist, and he was on the side. Now think about this. Let me put it a better way. He was against Garvey. Now Garvey was a big black Negro,
right?
And he called himself a Negro. And the bougie Negroes called him the Black Gorilla.
Yeah.
So we're talking about W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, and that group all was against him and sided with the whites because they were in the quote-unquote talented, can't say it together, talented tenth. Now, nobody ever studies what it means to be a talented tenth, other than the fact they take the 10% of all graduating classes and put them into white society. Those that are on the light side really got chose first. Now, the way I'm talking right now, Bev, your mind should be spinning. The audience mind should be spinning. Because when you look at all of our so-called historical black figures, and they're going to be coming out next month all over the place, the only one that really looked like us was Sojourner Truth.
Mm-hmm.
Rag on her head, black, couldn't speak English. She was born. Her parents, I think it was her mother, was Dutch, and her daddy was an ex-slave, and she spoke a broken Dutch language in her community, and they gave her all types of accolades of being a warrior for black causes. I'm challenging that. And I'm telling you and using historical revisionism to prove that it's totally impossible. Now, when I say Sojourner Truth, I think of the Underground Railroad, but then a second thought, I could have, and I will do, Harriet Tubman, who was really a part of the underground. I'm going to bring that up right now before I go any further. But Sojourner Truth was associated, as far as I know, with the Underground Railroad, because she was the one that had that old raggedy pistol. She was the one that said that if she could have taught blacks or convinced black that they were in slavery, she could have got more of them out, because most of them didn't realize that they were in slavery. So that was her biggest problem, to teach them what slavery was, and they were not supposed to live that way. Now, I don't know what. There we go. Underground Railroads. I don't know what your history taught you, but between the two, Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth, they were abolitionists who fought for the black cause. So let me lean both ways when I give my presentation of Harriet Tubman, because the Underground Railroad would be another issue that should be historically revisited. So we can easily use the revisionism on the Underground Railroad. Okay, now Harriet Tubman. Let me get back to her. Yep, Harriet Tubman was born into slavery about 1797 in Ulster County, New York, up in New York, known as Isabella. She was born. Her parents were James and Betsy, the property of Colonel Jonas Hardenberg. As a child, she spoke only Low Dutch, and like most slaves, never learned to read or write. Now this
Harriet, or this is Sojourner?
Sojourner.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yep. I'm going to blend Harriet in, but we're going to deal with Sojourner first, because she did some magnificent things in some very dangerous times where blacks were shot on sight, and they didn't care if you was a male or female, child, baby, they didn't give a damn. And she was doing some protesting. They even said she went to court and sued and won 3 cases. Now, all the other history books, when you go into black codes and Jim Crow, blacks were not allowed to sue Europeans. So how did she do it? Especially with a rag on her head.
Yeah.
You know, right. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now, I'm not saying she didn't do it.
Right.
I'm just saying it doesn't fit. That's all I'm saying. I'm not challenging or trying to downgrade nothing. I'm trying to put something in my mind that will work.
Right. And
when I look at that word revisionism, and I know that 90% of our story was all historically revisionism, or revisionated, if that's a word. It was all written in hindsight, because they had to keep us in line once they began to teach us to read. And then once we come into the TV and modern times and all of that stuff and movies, they had to brainwash our noggins. And so they had to do it in a way that would fit. And I'm telling you, that European has spent billions, maybe trillions of dollars in a psychological program, or what you like to hear me say, Beth, that European psychology.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, and we fall for it. And now when you look at our so-called educated ones, they're dumber than the uneducated ones.
But it makes sense, because look who educated them. They were purposely miseducated.
Yes. And the more of the revisionized history they learned, the more they were rewarded and given benefits and privileges. And once they graduate, if you will, move into those nice neighborhoods, have those nice jobs. See, if I'd love to do a program on sociology, I think is what it's called. What the income? What does a job do in controlling your life? I think it is the controlling factor in capitalism. Innocent, yes.
Yeah.
So anytime they threaten your job, they can lead you anywhere you want to go, anywhere they want you to go.
That's right.
You know? And that doesn't work on black people per se. That works on everybody. And that's why you have more uneducated whites in higher positions, because it's not an advantage. Look at it like this. On the job that you work, Beth, whatever it may be, if you were the owner of the business, it would not be to your advantage to hire someone that knows more about the business than you do.
Mm-hmm.
Your first problem is going to be they're going to start stealing. Because once they figure out you don't know nothing, and they can play dumb all they want, your income, your profits are going to start getting smaller. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody steals. Everybody picks up a nickel and dime. It ain't too bad. Especially when you think they owe you anyway, and especially when they done turned down your last salary review or your last salary promotion. You say there's no big deal. So that's a major problem in hiring people that have more education than you. I told you when I went in Dodge, Maine back in 1964, they made you take a 15-question test, and if you got more than 8 correct, you did not get hired because they didn't want any troublemakers in there. That's deep.
Mm.
You know, who looks at stuff like this?
Right.
I know Ron March is looking, but who looks at stuff like this? And then we just stand and we complain and whine and whine. You don't like black people. That's why you didn't hire. All that old crazy crap. And you can't see the forest for the trees. So I'm trying to give you a lesson or a class in revisionism to show you how they tricked you. I wouldn't be surprised, Bev, if they did not create. Now, there may have been a Sojourner Truth. That was not her real name. Because they said she was known as Isabella. And her mama and her papa was named James and Betsy. And they spoke only, as a child, she spoke only Low Dutch. Where would she get that from? She's a slave now. Where would she get that from? You would have to assume it came from the mama, the mother.
Right, right.
Okay, yeah. All right. So now let's keep moving a little bit. And I haven't forgot Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, because I got a bomb to drop on that.
Okay.
About 1815, Isabella, they call her their name, married Thomas, a fellow slave. Now you got a slave mama and a slave papa, and bore 5 children. And they got the names, whatever, they all in here. And a 5th child who may have died in infancy. So they don't even know what happened to the 5th one. Diana, I'm counting, Peter, Elizabeth, Sophia, that's 4, and then they say one of them died. Isabella was sold to 4 more owners until she finally walked to freedom in 1826, carrying her infant daughter, Sophia. Now, she walked to freedom in 1826. Think about that. They were shooting black people on sight in 1826.
And she had a child with her.
No, she wasn't having a child with her. She was pregnant.
Oh, she was pregnant. Okay.
All right. Maybe I'm wrong. It says carrying her infant daughter. So the daughter was born. She had to carry that. You were right. I'm sorry. I thought it meant that she was carrying it, but it says infant daughter, so the daughter was already born. So she was carrying the baby, yes.
So how she gonna control that baby from not crying when the people ride by looking for the slaves? How you gonna keep that baby quiet?
And how is she going to explain who and where she come from if she didn't have paperwork?
Right.
Because all of those things were in place according to the history they taught us. Black codes. They hated black people back then, especially with a rag on their head. Let's keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she couldn't pass for white, nor could she be a house Negro because she was rusty black. All the pictures they show, she was black.
I thought her mother was Dutch.
Might have been, but the pictures of Sojourner Truth were black pictures. She was black. Now you can, yes. The answer to you is yes. Now they didn't say she was Dutch. They said she spoke only Low Dutch. But the picture, now you think about it, you done seen pictures of Sojourner Truth. Look like old Angel Mammy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Okay. She settled in New York until 1843 when she changed her name to Sojourner Truth in 1843, announcing she would travel the land as an interim preacher, telling the truth and working against injustice in 1843. She's going to turn into a Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm.
Woo. During the next several years, Truth lived in Northampton, Massachusetts, where she purchased a home, and in Ohio. She traveled around the East and Midwest, preaching for human rights. This illiterate ex-slave was a powerful figure in several national social movements, speaking forcibly for the abolishment of slavery, women's rights, and suffrage, women to vote, the rights of freedmen, temperance, prison reform, and the termination of capital punishment. Come on, what does Sam Milley try to tell us? Woo! Now I got a picture of her, looking like Angel Mammy. You got that piece on her head, got an old dress on, dark complected. In the course of her travels, she befriended many of the leading reformers of abolitionists of the day, including Amy Post, Parker Pillsbury, Francis Dana Gage, Wendell Phillips, William L. Garrison, Laura. Well, we don't need to go through all the names, but she ran into a lot of people that began to help her. But still, they had to hide her because she had to have papers that she was free. They're not talking about papers. Truth supported herself by selling portraits captioned, I sell the shadow to support the substance. She also received income from the sale of her biography, The Native of Sojourner Truth, a Northern Slave, written in 1850 by her friend, someone else who could write, Olive Gilbert. Anyone that calls in your show, Bev, they should, do you tell them to put mute if they're not going to ask the question? That strange. I hear a strange sound in the background.
Because that might be from your end, because we can hear you clear, but you kind of low.
Oh.
Or maybe let me see if it's. Hello.
Yes. Hello. I just turned it up a little bit. Is that good?
Okay. Yeah.
All right. But see, I hear that scritching sound, and I didn't know where it was coming from. All right.
Is it still there?
Point. I'll let you know when I hear it.
Okay.
Okay. Sojourner came to Battle Creek, Michigan in 1856 when she was invited to address the radical Quaker group, the Friends of Human Progress. The next year, she moved to Michigan, buying a home in the nearby settlement of Harmonia. 10 years later, Sojourner moved into Battle Creek, converting a small barn on College Street into her home. She lived there with her two daughters, Diana and Elizabeth. I don't know what happened. Oh, yes, Sophia must have died. I don't know. Until her death. Okay? While she lived in Michigan, Truth continued her national human rights crusade. In 1860, thousands of freedmen and former slaves fled to Washington, D.C., seeking safety and jobs. Lord have mercy. Come on. In other words, it sounds like a march on Washington. In 1860?
Yeah.
In 1860? However, the federal government was totally unprepared for the influx. There was no place for the ex-slaves to live, very little food, and no employment. No employment. Sojourner worked at Freedman Village and for the Freedman Bureau trying to improve the living conditions. I'll get one more paragraph. Maryland residents frequently came, now listen to this, Maryland residents, she was in Washington, D.C., Maryland residents frequently came to the Freedman Village to steal children. If the parents complained, they were put into a guardhouse. Truth learned of these kidnappings, and she encouraged the parents to protest. When the camp commanders threatened to imprison her, also, Truth replied that if they tried, she would make the nation rock like a cradle. Come on. Now let's just stop for a minute and reevaluate some of this stuff. And
wait a minute, where did she go from Michigan to Washington?
It was 1856, and she started her protesting and stuff in 1860. 1860, and that was right at the country was at war. Because I have to tell you, and I mentioned it earlier, that the real Civil War started in 1856. That was when the black-on-black confederations fought each other. The Powhatan of the North and the Iroquois from the South. They fought each other, and they were fighting over mulattoes. And the laws of the Moors was if you were not a full-blooded Moor, you could not give up this land to anybody. And at this time, Europeans only had 13 colonies. United States was only 13 colonies surrounded over in the area of Washington, D.C. Why would she go to United States and complain about conditions when she lived in America? This is another question that I would bring up. Because they have already brainwashed us that United States of America has always been here. So they say. And I've learned, and I brought information and data and research in, that the Europeans only controlled United States, which was 13 colonies. That's where they got the name, from 13 colonies. So now they're brainwashing us to try to figure out, why would she go to Washington, D.C.? None of that belonged to her. Because the Constitution made it clear that we, and I can prove this in their own writings, we as blacks can never be citizens of United States. So what the hell are they talking about here? See, these are things I would ask some of these so-called European historians and most of these writers, because certain foundations that have money, and you know if you got a good cause to promote white supremacy, you can get all the money you want. That's how the Tea Party got started. Although they were founded by super rich Koch brothers, they still get foundation money from all contributing factors. And I had a list of the contributing corporations to the Koch brothers, not Koch brothers, to the Tea Party. Have you ever seen that list?
Yeah, I had that list. I got it around here somewhere too.
Yeah. So then you would ask the question, if the Koch brothers are so rich, why are they getting so much support from these corporations, which the corporations can write off, Bev?
Yeah.
These are donations. And all they have to do in the Tea Party is have employment. You got to be nonprofit. And if you set it up in the ecclesiastic realm, you had to teach. Now think about this. I'll get back to Sojourner Truth, but think about what I'm saying. So they would qualify for no taxes. So this would be a total benefit for the Koch brothers and every corporation that contributes to the demise of black people or black America. They would all get a kickback from the government. And we sitting back doing nothing. Ain't even bringing it up.
We don't know.
We don't know. Woo! Okay. Sojourner often testified in the demeaning nature of slavery. Now listen to her mouth. I mean, I'm saying it on the negative note, but I'm trying to get into this European psychology. Why would they let her go around, what they call it, sputing this, raising hell with the slaves? That's not to the advantage of these Peckerwoods. But here you go. Sojourner Truth often testified to the demeaning nature of slavery and the demeaning power of faith. She declared that her soul was declouded and crushed while in slavery. But how good and wise is God, for if slaves knew what their true condition was, it would be more than the mind could bear. I don't know what that means. While the race is sold of all their rights, sold, yeah. While the race is sold of all their rights, what is there on God's footstool to bring them up? She's really challenging Christianity as she runs this stuff. But I believe in the next world, here we go with that by and by crap. But I believe in the next world, when we get up yonder, we shall have all them rights stowed to us again. Ain't that a mess? That was written in 1846.
Sound like some European psychology to me.
Somebody help us. And we're going to sit up and we're going to work. We're going to celebrate this crap. Okay. But I got this, finish it up. But Truth was unwilling to wait to get to heaven to have her rights, or those of any persecuted person restored. She didn't want to wait. Preaching for racial equality, she asked, does not God love colored children as well as white children? And did not the same Savior die to the same ones as well as the other? She made that speech in Battle Creek at a Sabbath school convention in, listen to the date, 1863.
Kind of sounds like Martin Luther.
Yes.
With all young black kids and white kids. Kind of sounds
holding hands, walking down in Mississippi together. Some old crap like that.
Mm-hmm.
Bev, I don't know. Well, you be the judge. I'm not going to worry about it. You be the judge.
Ever since you told us about last week about Abraham Lincoln, it all came together. And so this is the fact. It is so clear now. My eyes is open. I see it all now. This falls right into the same thing with the Abraham Lincoln piece.
Yes. and see how powerful and dangerous revisionism is.
Yeah.
And nobody ever thought about that. Once, see, like, I go back to the Koch brothers. Once they set up the Tea Party and moved it into the political arena, then they began, people are writing stories and books and television interviews on this group. And they can make it look good or make it look bad.
Mm-hmm.
Or tie them in to Abraham Lincoln. Here's one that her granddaddy was Robert E. Lee and all that old crazy crap. Yeah. And so you begin to look at it in a historical fact that they were ordained to do this thing. And all the time they're ripping us of our rights and stealing our country.
Yeah.
Our country, not them, our country. And we just sit back and don't say nothing.
And lying all through it.
Yes, and feel sorry. I've heard people say that the Tea Party will slow down the Republican Party because the Tea Party don't like the Republican Party, and the only reason they don't like them because they don't kill enough black people. They're not angry enough at black people. Their views and opinions are not to the right far enough. So I would ask, well, if you a Democrat, where are them punks? Why would you say that the Ku Klux Klan Tea Party is going to be a thorn in the side for the Republicans when the Democrats is a party that's recognized by their Constitution, which would be that new shit stuff on 1871, and it's supposed to balance the books, and you ain't saying nothing about them.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you can hear the Democrats say that Boehner, that old crazy drunk, that drunken peck, look red all the time.
Yeah.
They said, well, Boehner's not going to have it as easy as he thinks because the Tea Party's going to slow him down. Somebody should challenge that man on that. What the hell do you mean? Why are you not slowing down? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, Bev, I should not be the one to have to keep bringing this kind of stuff up. And I'm not going to take credit that I'm only one thinking about it. But we got to get in. We got to get busy. That's all I'm saying. And we got to protect ourselves by challenging this madness. And that's what we never do. And they try to keep us out of the news media if we don't say what they want us to say. Now, let's slide right on in to Harriet Tubman starts working with the Underground Railroad. On this date in 1853, Harriet Tubman began her work with the Underground Railroad. She was a network of anti-slavery activists, I can't never say that word, activists, who helped slaves escape from the South. On her first trip, Tubman brought her own sister and her own sister's 2 children out of slavery in Maryland. Took them out of Maryland. Now, let me stop for a minute and say to you that in the beginning of slavery in the United States, now we know slavery's been here ever since prostitution and drugs, or prostitution and gambling, so let's don't go crazy talking about, Ron, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the 13 colonies started slavery in the United States. That's what I'm talking about. None of the southern states, as we know it, had anything to do with slavery. Now, I'm going to say it again. There were bad contracts. There were work contracts. There were good contracts. Because everything is set up. We never learned this in school because they didn't want us to know. But every process when it comes to commerce has to be set up through contract. That's why your mama and your papa, one of the biggest things they told you, if you could ever remember, anytime you sign your name, or especially when you buy a home, always have a lawyer present. That was one of the sayings back in the day, because all of it is contract. The same thing should go with insurance policies. Same thing, everything, anytime you sign your name in America, if you were wise, you had to have a mind of law, or you should have a lawyer read it, because you're going to get screwed and tattooed, because every contract is on credit, and all credit is there's no money. So you're getting screwed and tattooed when you sit down, because you're going to buy something and you're going to pay for it twice, because you're going to give them your name, and when you sign it, and then you're going to start making payments. And Bev, you and I went through that almost 6-8 months ago.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because they're going to sell that contract 10 times of what it's worth, because they can flip it. They got a name for it. I always said I was going to remember. Hypothecate. Some of you whiz kids out there, look up hypothecate. You can hypothecate a contract 10 times, or technically 9 times, because when you sign it, that's the first time. So if you sign it and it's $100,000, you can add 9 zeros to that sucker once it gets into the system of this so-called capitalistic system. It's a damn shame. And meanwhile, you make payments to keep the contract valid. And that's why the Obama stepped in after Bush ruined. I wouldn't say he did it, but after the economy was ruined after Bush, Obama stepped in with the so-called stimulus package of $7 trillion. Where did that money come from? Just stop and think and ask yourself, where in the hell did $7 trillion come from? And the country been screaming about debt. And they gave all of it to the bankers. Woo!
Yeah.
And nobody even talked about it. You know, I don't see how they can give news and never say anything. You know, you're listening to them. Say, well, what the hell is he talking about? They just gave all that money to them, and the people lost their homes. All of that was a Ponzi scheme.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Yeah. And the hurting thing about it, which most people don't want to grasp, is the judges, the lawyers, the prosecutors, and the police department. They all work together. They're all crooks. No ifs and buts about it. Let me tell you this story. I was up getting ready for my lecture, and there was an older dude sitting there. And when he saw me, the guy he was talking to recognized me. So the older dude was interested in who I was. So when the other guy was telling who I was and all of that, he asked a couple of questions. Everything was smooth. Then he said that he was a retired police officer. And I said, oh. I said, may I ask you a question? He said, sure. I said, now, you don't have to answer, because I don't want to put you on the spot. By this time, I got about 3 more people that walked up because they saw me and whatever the case may be. They listened. I said, why is it that police departments make their candidates or their recruits sign 2 oaths before they can get on the street? He dropped his head right in his hands and dropped his head. And I said, don't answer it. I said, don't answer it. Now, everybody listening, they got mad. Oh, yeah, let him answer. No, I don't want. I said I didn't want to put him on the spot. He raised his head and looked me right in the eye and said to me, sometimes you have to turn your head when you see something. And I walked away. And when I got about 100 or 150 feet away from him in the mall, I turned back and looked at him and threw my hand up saying goodbye, and he waved. And them idiots were still standing there trying to figure out what we were talking about. Now that's deep.
So why? What's the contract?
The first oath. The first oath is to the fraternal order.
Okay.
The second oath is to the Constitution and protect the people. So when they kill somebody, the first oath protects them, because the order of the fraternal order says you got to protect the corporations.
Okay.
And all of this talk about reforming the police from killing and shooting, they still shooting black people. I think since Michael Brown and Trayvon and all that group back in a couple of months ago, I know there's been at least 5 young cats been killed, maybe more. And nobody's saying a word. They don't want to bring it up again because people will understand there's something wrong with that whole process. And, of course, all of them is justifiable homicide. And now it came out. Let's go back. You know how I skip around, babe. I'm working on Harriet Tubman so I can get back to her. But I got something to tell you about her. Let's go back to Michael Brown. Let's go back to the party store when he went in and supposedly snatched the cigarette butts or whatever and walked out. You recall?
Yeah.
And everybody was looking at his shoes because he had on flip-flops, and when he was murdered, 7 minutes later, he had on tennis shoes laced up.
And he had different pants on, too.
He had different pants on. But I got a new thing to tell you. Go back to what you saw, and when he came, the camera was at the front door, and when he came into the picture, you saw him bump a stand of, let's say, potato chips. He bumped something, and then he slammed his hand on the counter. And then he walked out. And then the man ran up, and then he walked on out. You recall that?
Yeah.
Try to think back about
I'm trying to think, yeah.
Slamming his hand on the counter.
Okay.
He paid for it. He paid for whatever he bought. And
but was that
the
same day? I mean, that must have...
No, it was not the same day.
Okay.
It was not, and we need to find out, and somebody should have asked, how did the chief of police get that film?
Mm-hmm.
Because the man in the guy that owned the store said he didn't call the police because nothing was stolen.
Right.
He didn't like the boy's attitude, which is understandable. Big old nigga running in there, wolfing and carrying on. I can understand that. But there was no crime, no pain, no gain type thing. So nobody called the police. So how did they get that film and popped it on the screen the day of the shoot? That's deep, Bev. You'd almost say the killing was premeditated.
Yeah.
You'd almost say that. I'm just throwing that up in hindsight.
Yeah.
So anyway, see, those type things we need to deal with. Because when that goes down in history, I can see them revisiting that 20, 30, 40 years from now. And ain't no telling how they're going to put it in the paper.
Right.
And they'll probably say that black people was happy because that they didn't put the cop in jail.
And somebody in the chat room say, how we know that was even him?
Correct. And the prosecutor had the audacity to say that he had screened hundreds of witnesses, and they were so confusing, he had to pick the ones that he thought was legit. Now think about that. And yet he didn't see a reason to convene to indict from the grand jury when he didn't know what went on, and he had to go through 100 people to get the story he wanted, and then he proceeded after he got what he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. Because I can't help from bringing this up. The mother of the boy that was shot in the hallway after coming home, he was on his way upstairs and the cop shot him, and then the cop called his union boss to ask him what to do. No, that wasn't the one. The one in Carolina where the boy was hung, and they said he hung himself because he was delirious because his grandfather had died.
Mm.
And he didn't have shoes on, and the pair of shoes that was there, he wore a 10 or 11, and the pair of shoes that was on the ground was an 8 or a 9.
Wow.
and he was in the white neighborhood because he had a 30. He was 19, 18 or 19, and he had a 39-year-old white girlfriend, and he was in the area of the girlfriend when he hung himself.
Mm.
And the mother said when the cops came to interview her, the first thing they asked was there any reason for him to be upset over anything? And the mama said no, but she said it. I heard her say it. No, but the grandfather passed a couple of days ago, and we had to go to a funeral. And the cops said, okay. When it came out, they said he was despondent because his grandfather died because the mama told us.
Yeah. So what you saying? You showing us how they doing it today? This is how they wrote this.
Fixed
back
history
about Harriet Tubman.
Yes.
I told you. I see it with Abraham Lincoln.
Unbelievable, Ben.
Yes, it is.
It's unbelievable.
Yes, it is.
And if we can't get people to wake up and see this, it's all for naught because they're going to keep on doing it. So let me get back to Harriet Tubman because I told you I had a surprise for you.
Okay.
Okay. On her first trip, she brought back her sister and her sister's children. A year later, she rescued her brother, and in 1857, this is during the era of Dred Scott. So you know the climate was crazy. You know the Mason-Dixie line was there, and Missouri, as Ferguson, Missouri, was one of the battlegrounds for black people. So you had to be very careful in them areas. So in 1857, she returned to Maryland to guide her aged parents to freedom. Now, Maryland is a northern state. So somebody should ask, if we fight, and this is in 18, and they are above the Mason-Dixie line.
Right.
So if this is in 1857, and the so-called Civil War broke out in 1860 and 1861, why was Maryland having slaves and they are up north? And then the Union attacked the South. You dig it?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's keep going. Over a period of 10 years, Tubman made an estimated 19 exhibitions into the South and personally escorted about 300 slaves to the North. Now, all of a sudden, the next paragraph, they switch and put her in the South, but she did her first underground work in Maryland. Maryland is way up. You know, Maryland is close to New York.
Yeah.
All of that so-called storm and stuff is above New York. Right. What the hell am I talking about? Maryland? No, somebody called me. Tell your cat because I'm looking and I can't see Maryland because I see New York, Providence, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Massachusetts, right in there, and Washington, D.C. coming down. So Maryland and Connecticut had to be up, if I'm not mistaken, above New York. And I might be wrong. But either way, we talking about 13 colonies. And that's where the first slaves was. But now they done flipped her down south. Now, that would be a good revision input if Maryland was true, because her parents lived there and she got her sisters out. Now they can take her and flip her right into the South and go ahead with this big lie that the South had all the black people. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And nobody challenges this. So somebody had to write this. I'm looking to see who wrote this thing. I got it off the net. It's American History Registry. Oh, Lord have mercy. I just told you if you could come up with anything that's going to promote white supremacy or white racism, you can get money from the government. And the first thing I see after African American Registry is the name of the thing, a non-profit educational organization. What the? And I bet you, I bet you they ain't got 10 blackies that work in there.
Right. Wow. Somebody in the chat room say Maryland is next door to Washington, D.C.
Okay, I got to think about that. Maryland is next door to Washington, D.C. Wow, Maryland. That ain't right. I'm gonna look at it because you look it up, Bev. Can you look it up?
I gotta see a map here.
Okay, because coming out of D.C., you got New Jersey, you got Pennsylvania. I can't see, and I don't have a map, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just working with this noggin, this big old noggin. I got this big Olmec noggin. I just can't see Maryland, and they never talk about Maryland. Maryland should have a football team, and don't tell me it's New England State, because it ain't. Boston, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, that's your, and New York, those are your so-called New England State, New England Patriots. But I just can't see Maryland. Anyway, you'll look it up and see. Okay, and tell them I'm not calling them anything, I just can't. I don't know exactly where it's, and nobody talks about Maryland. All of that storm that came through, I ain't heard them mention Maryland at all. Wow. All right.
I'm looking at New Hampshire, New York.
Okay.
I'm trying to see.
Rhode Island's on the tip near the water of Providence be sticking out there. Then as you come down, you should be looking at Massachusetts, Connecticut, Boston, Massachusetts. But do you see Maryland? I can't see it.
I can't see it either.
Now go up above New York, up there, and look and see if you don't see Maryland up there.
I see Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, New York, Vermont, right next to New York.
Yep, Vermont.
Yeah.
I just can't see Maryland. But anyway, we know Maryland's over there somewhere. I ain't never met nobody from Maryland. Come think about it. I ain't never heard nobody talk about Maryland. All right.
It shouldn't be this hard to find Maryland.
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Ooh. Okay. So anyway, over the next 10 years, she did 19 trips down there, and now they say she was in the South. So they're changing her whole perspective, and now they're flipping her in the South. Now, here's a black historian that works for the American Heritage. What's the name of this thing? The name of this is American Registry, but they got this black professor who family connection to the Underground Railroad by Charles Blockson. Dr. Charles Blockson, historian, author and collection of African American heritage, shares a view connection that his family had the Underground Railroad. Lord have mercy, help us. All right. Here's where I want to go with this. Harriet Tubman was an ex-slave. And by her being an ex-slave, she had to be born in slavery. Now, let's say she was here. Let's say her parents was here. I'm looking fast to try and see. Okay, she was born in Dorchester County, Maryland. She lived in Maryland. March 1913. No, she died in 1913. Her name was Harriet Tubman. She had children, and she had a spouse, and her nickname was Moses. Okay, Moses. All right. Now, you know they've done a lot of extensive work with her and to promote her. she's another sister with a rag on her head, Bev.
Yeah.
And all the pictures I'm looking at, she is really a black Negro. And I'm trying to say that with love so we don't get that mixed up with the mulattoes. That's all I'm saying. And she got this rag on her head. Now, here's my hookup. She had to be born into slavery. And if she was born in slavery, because she was in Maryland, and they just said Maryland was a slave state, how was it possible for her to be a part of, or the creator of, or the leadership of Underground Railroad when she flipped? All she did in her earlier years was go from Maryland she went to Maryland to get her people. My point is, how did she know there was no highways, there was no blue book, yellow book, there was no GPS, there was no telephones, there was no pay phones. So how was she going to the South, coming out, and bringing people up north, and she was a slave or an ex-slave? How did she find out how to do that? You know, it'd be like me taking you right now, Bev, and we go out to Benton Harbor. But rather than let you out at Benton Harbor, I go up above another 10 miles and put you out on the fence in the woods. Now, you're going to find your way back to Benton Harbor or wherever. That's almost impossible. You invite me to your house. We sit down having dinner. I say, I need some hot sauce. You say to me, it's in the kitchen. And I jump up and run in the kitchen. Now, where is it at? It's in the cabinet. I'm going through the cabinets. I don't see it. It's all behind the salt. All of it. In other words, how in the hell was she so successful as a leader of the Underground Railroad when she was born a slave? How did she know how? Where was her road maps and all that stuff?
Right.
Now that's a good question.
Yeah.
It may be a good answer, but if they don't respect us enough to give us these answers, we should ask. Now, if I was in school and asked that question, the teacher probably tell me, you asked too many questions, so let's don't worry about that right now. Something like that. And then give me a bad citizenship because I disrupt the class. They'll change it from asking questions to disrupting the class, which I always did when I was in school because I didn't buy none of that crap, and I always had my hand up. A lot of times they say, we ain't going to call on you. Ron, put your hand down because you ain't going to ask something silly. Everybody laugh, you know.
Right.
But think about that. We giving her all these accolades. She'll be all up next week. You'll see pictures of her next month. Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, W.E.B. Du Bois. You know, very little of Marcus Garvey, Noble Drew Ali. You may see some of Elijah Muhammad, but I got some questions about that also. What is that? Was that you?
Yeah, that's my phone. That's somebody.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, I'm just laying this out because we have lived in I don't see how we made it today. I don't see, we had to be gifted by God to be alive today. And I say alive, I'm not talking about me being alive as Ron. I'm talking about my ancestors being alive back in 1800. Because if you didn't play ball with them, and I mean play ball, any citizen, white, could do something to you. Now, I'm going to take a break, and when I come back, I'm going to show you conditions that are so horrible that you'll get, you know, I want you to try to flip your mind into this to try to get an understanding what I'm talking about.
Okay, yeah, because I see, and the person in the chat room was absolutely correct. Maryland is right next door to Washington. It's over there by Delaware and all of that.
Okay.
New Jersey, up in there.
All right.
Okay.
Good enough. All right, let's take a break. I'm going to take a look at it myself. Let's take a break.
Okay.
Be back 10 minutes.
Oh, and Ron March is giving us some real Black history for the Black History Month of February. Ron March, are you back?
Yes, I am, Beth. I'm back.
Okay.
And I have a caller.
Uh-huh.
And I want to tap him. Looks like he's been waiting a while. Let me see who this is. All right. Let me see if I do this right. Yep. Yes, caller, you're on the line. Are you there? Caller? He's not back yet. We'll come back to him, Bev.
Caller from the 713 area code. You're on the air?
Yes. 713 area code, correct. You're on the air. Last four numbers 0067. Do you have a question or comment?
I think they're just listening.
Okay, good enough. All right.
Hello?
Oh,
there they go.
There they go. Let me see if I can get them back. All right. Yes, caller, are you there?
Yes.
All right. How
are you two doing?
Yes, I'm fine. Is this Ashira?
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you, but you're fading in and out.
I can't hear you. Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Okay. Hi. How you doing,
Hi. I'm good. I'm good.
This is Ashira.
I thought it was. Yes. How are you?
Hi. I'm well. How are you, Sister Beth?
Great.
Yep. We're just kicking it.
Excellent show.
I thank you. I was just saying, we're kicking it around. I saw you had been listening for a while, and I noticed I should have tapped it. I'm not as good as you and Bev on this mess, tapping and working this.
You'll get it. You'll get there.
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
But anyway, do you have a question or comment before we move?
Well, everything that you're saying about Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth is very interesting and enlightening, Brother Ron. You just always seem to see things that we just have glossed over,
Yes.
and so I just really appreciate that. And I also want to add that I want to say thank you for bringing up that point about what that store clerk said in regards to Mike Brown stealing the cigarillos and all of that, because I actually read an article today that was referencing that, and it said, he stole the cigarillos. And what you said, people seem to forget, because that's how the media will do. They'll put out a story, then they'll retract it, or they won't show it anymore, then they'll come back with another lie, because that store clerk did say that he never called 911.
Right.
And see, that was the excuse that the chief said as to why this killer cop turned around and began shooting at Mike Brown and Dorian Johnson. So all of that was a whole big lie. People still sit here and say, well, he stole the cigarillos to justify him being shot. Even if he did steal the cigarillos, even if he had the store on his back walking down the street, that does not justify this man shooting these teenagers as they were walking down the street. So I just want to say thank you so much for making that point, because people forget that store clerk said he never called 911.
Correct. Now, did you hear the first part when I mentioned historical revisionism? And I talked about revisionist history. Well, that's a prime example of it, that they do right in your face. When they take an issue, take points out of the issue, revise it the way they want it to be, and then have the power and the vehicle to put it in the news, and then we look at it and we fall for it without challenge. That's why I'm going through Tubman and everything. I'm going to deal now with Lincoln, and I'm going to bring up some points that people have just overlooked, just don't even think about. And when you think about it, you'll see why he never intended to free us. Never. It was never in his mind to free black Americans. He was a mulatto, but he was more of them than us. So let's just keep that in mind. Plus his power base. Let me segue from your call right into the next portion of the show, if that would be all right with you, Ashira.
Okay, I'll continue.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate her call.
And then somebody in the chat room also said maybe she was freeing white slaves.
That's my point. Now, you tell what's that person's name? Let me call that person's name when I say this. You got a right to give it to me, Bev. Give me that name.
OLMEQ or something, yes. I think I'm pronouncing it right.
All right, that's good. That's close enough. Now, listen, Onette, work with me on this.
Olmec.
All right. Work with me on this. Now, I appreciate you to call, but since you're in the chat room, let me just say this. That is the key to mulattoes. If I ask you what is a mulatto, you're going to say a black and white baby or child. Okay, that's good. But what if the child is 80% black and 20% white? You're going to say that ain't a mulatto, that's a light-skinned brother. You've been trained to say that. Now, if I say flip the script and say it's 80% white and 20% black, you will probably say that's a white person. Now, put that in your pipe and smoke. So I'm really agreeing with you, but I want you to be more profound when you say that. White slaves, there was a lot of white slaves. And actually, at some particular time, and in some camps, there were more white slaves than black. And even when you go to different, not only plantations, let's just take a rich whitey that wanted to set up a contraband. So he'd have a job like changing car tires. I don't know. I'm just trying to get something small. He would hire all white-looking slaves, females, so he could have a sex harem. You dig? And the slaves could not get out of it because he could prove that they were black. Because they had that rule. Bev, you got to remind me before next week to look up that word, and I'm going to pronounce it the best I can. It's a law that's still on the books called impersonal immaterial. That's good enough. Impersonal immaterial. Now, what the hell does that mean? It means that whatever your mother was, the child had to be. So if the mother was a slave, they didn't care what color the child was a slave. Right. Now, so put that in your little noggin and flip it. So let's take a light-skinned mulatto, marry a white woman, and the babies varied from white to tan.
Mm-hmm. And you know what, Ryan, a good example of what you just said, I just saw it on TV the other day where they was at one of the award shows, and Quincy Jones' daughter was being interviewed, and the lady that was interviewing her thought she was white, and she said, "You have a beautiful tan." And Quincy Jones' daughter said, "Well, you know I'm ethnic."
You know, Bev, it's strange that you bring that up. Let me tell you something that you don't know.
Okay.
Do you remember Roman Polanski?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Roman Polanski was a Hollywood producer. He raped a 13 or 14-year-old girl and got caught. And through manipulation, he left the country and he went to France, all extradition places, and the United States couldn't get him back. He lived over there all this time.
Mm-hmm.
That 14-year-old girl is, what's her name's wife?
Quincy Jones?
Quincy Jones married that girl.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Quincy Jones, wait a minute. Quincy Jones' wife was white, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And she was the rape victim from Roman Polanski. Her father, I should have did more research, but okay. I talked to her brother. Her father, and let me use the word alleged. That'll get me out of hot water.
Okay.
Her father was an alleged devil worshiper. And the reason Polanski didn't go to prison was because the father sacrificed the daughter to have sex with Polanski.
Oh, okay.
Somebody say
her name was Peggy Lipton?
Yes. I think it was. Yes.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. Okay,
yeah.
Okay, all right.
Now,
wow.
The father, Polanski, and I don't want to throw the girl in there, but they all were in a group with Sharon Tate.
Oh, okay, I remember that. Okay.
All this happened during the same time.
Okay.
Sharon Tate was in that devil worshiping group with that crazy Manson, Charles Manson.
Right. Wow.
Put all that in a pot and stir it up and see what you...
and in the chat room, they say that Quincy's daughter, she claims her to be Jewish more so than the black side.
Okay, now let's not be stingy about this. There's more freedom on the Jewish side than it is the nigger side, ain't it?
Right.
And they say from the allegedly that Quincy is one of the biggest
homo.
Yes.
Yeah.
In Hollywood.
Yes,
in the area.
So, that's what I heard. Yeah, I heard that
yes.
too.
All right. So that's enough of that. But I just want to throw that out.
Okay.
All right. Now, let's go with Lincoln. And let's talk about your job. If all of y'all listening to me, if your job went out on Friday, you got your paycheck, and Monday morning the job was gone, what would you do? Okay? Now, if you lived in 1860s, early 60s, when Lincoln first he set up the Labor Code to give him power, then he endorsed the Vagrant Act and the Fugitive Act, which was in 1850, but he used it. Then he told his generals that we do not want the South to ever rise again because the power in Congress was always overwhelmed by, let's just say, groups that disagreed with the Republicans. Now, they tell us in history that we were Republicans all the time first. That was a revisionized discovery that fit the process coming into the 1900s, that we were always Republicans, and we didn't flip until 1898 during the race riot of Wilmington, North Carolina. Now, y'all look that up. They're going to say it. Because the mayor was a Republican. The president was Republican. Old McKinley, whatever that punk's name was, McKinley. They all went fishing when the Peckerwoods put on the Ku Klux Klans and went into Wilmington and slaughtered as many blacks as they could find and ran all of the entrepreneurs and political machine out of town. They said it was the biggest coup d'etat in the history of the earth. I didn't say it. Look it up. Don't look at me like I'm crazy. Look it up yourself. Now, I'm only bringing all that up to put you in a frame of mind. What would you do if you lived during that era? That's the question. Now, once he sent them generals in to do their dirty work, why there was they'll tell you today that the bloodshed and the bodies were the most in American history that was shed during that so-called Civil War. Keep in mind, that was the second Civil War, not the first. Or better yet, that was the European war, not the real Civil War against the land and the people of the land. Okay? They used a Machiavelli, the prince. They used a prince process to wait until the war was over. The South won the first war. The Europeans that came out of Washington, D.C., here we go again, 13 colonies. What the hell were they doing in America? They took the 13 colonies and united the 13 colonies and called them United States, and then went to the Powhatan tribe and told them that we can unite and we can kick them Iroquois' butt. Let's do it again. And they did it again, and they beat them the second time around. Now, since the Iroquois were the ones against, I don't know if I want to say they were against the European. Revisionism would say they were against white people. But I'm going to say they had a culture that did not include white people. And that culture would accept mulattoes, but you could not own land unless you were a full-blood Blackie or Moor or Indian, whatever you want to call it, Iroquois. You had to be full-blooded. Now, you got to put yourself in that era to understand it. It's difficult for you to sit back in 203 and say, Ron, you crazy. And I'm going to say to you, when the conversation's over, I'll be crazy. Get out of my sight. I'm putting myself back into 1858, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63. And I'm looking at this madness. And I'm telling you, and I got proof, Lincoln told his generals, I'm going to sign this Emancipation Proclamation. And here's a revisionist that writes about it. I'm trying to find the date. Here we go. Here we go. All right. December 1 month after the proclamation would be issued, Lincoln included an extraordinary passage in his annual message to Congress. He proposed that Congress pass and the state legislatures approve a new constitutional amendment that provided for three elements of slave emancipation. Those are the three badges you hear me talk about.
Mm-hmm.
That were totally at odds with the January edit, meaning that it wasn't in the original. It never got on paper, the three badges. First, here's the first one. First, it would authorize gradual emancipation by the slave states at any point between 1900. So they was going to give them from 1863 up to 1900 to eliminate slavery in the southern states, as to spare both races, black and white, from evils of sudden derangement. And when you look up that word derangement means, listen, Bev, flip the script. Derangement, meaning going into the war, the European was the caveman, and the blacks were the power of the Midwest or of America. But derangement meant that they was going to flip it, make the Blackie, Negro, the caveman, and make the European the king and the queen or the power of it. So what they did, they had to destroy the Democrat and any political power in the South so they would not rise and buck against the Republican Party. Now, since there was no televisions, no telephones, no cell phones and all of this did not spread as it would today with, any type of unity. So they were caught with that. So the revisionists could go to an area that was good and peaceful and loved white people, write about it, or an area that would say that emancipation was good because it was freeing slaves and didn't know that slaves were white folks as well as black folks, and then write about it, and then teach it to us, and then we get stuck with the fact that all slaves were black people. That's that revision madness that you get hung up in. All right? And to spare, and let me get it back, as well as, all right, they're going to, at any point before 1900, as why we to spare both races from evils of sudden derangement, and to spare free blacks. See, there were plenty of free blacks on both sides of the Mason-Dixie, but there was no clarification as to what, who, and where, because they were going at first on the mama being the creator of the slave, because whatever the mama was, the slave would be. Now they're going to flip the script and use color. That's why all the writings back in the 1800s, they talked about colored people. NAACP that started with Jews, they talked about colored people. Why? Because some Jews were dark. And they were thrown in slavery. Yes.
Mm.
So the Emancipation Proclamation freed them. They could go to court now because they had more education. The Jews always had a little education. Blackies coming out of the cotton fields or wherever they were working, menial jobs, they had no education. That's why I was questioning Sojourner Truth. Where was she during this time to get there and get these cases in the court? But they threw in there that she had won 3 cases. And I'm saying to myself, malarkey, how can that be? Okay? From the vagrant destitution, and that's that word I talk about, vagrant act, that must largely attend immediate emancipation. So they're going to create vagrants once they free the slaves. What else can a slave do? This is why the whole emancipation was nothing but hell. Because once you tore down the industry, what the hell are the people going to do? We're suffering from emancipation, that bull crap today, by shutting down the auto industries, and then they took Detroit away from us because we don't have jobs, and they brought foreclosure in and took our houses. No different, same. And the unemployment rate is so high that back in the day they had the power to pass vagrant acts in the city ordinances. They changed it. You can't call them black codes today. You can't call it Jim Crow today. But you can get away with, oh, that's a city ordinance. What the hell are you talking about? And you want to know a modern runaway slave? Let somebody get caught tonight in Bloomfield Hills, and they owe child support, or they owe a ticket. And watch Bloomfield Hills call up Detroit and say, I got one of your niggas out here. And then Detroit say, well, we ain't got no transportation tonight. Hold him overnight. We'll get somebody out there tomorrow or the next day. And then they say, well, you know, we got to charge you room and board. Plus, you're going to pay us for turning the slave into you. So they're going to get a little money package for that process. Hello?
Sound like slavery to me.
And don't think it's happening in Detroit only. It's happening all across the United States.
Right.
And nobody's, where them niggas at, them pundits? Where them jackleg ass preachers? Where they at? Talking about the by and by, you gonna get it up there in heaven. Oh, Lord, have mercy. Help me, somebody. Okay, let me finish. I'm still talking about these 3 badges. Okay, the vagrant destitution that must largely attend immediate emancipation. Second, we jump into the second badge. It would provide that any state wherein slavery now exists shall receive compensation. Remember I told you, they were supposed to receive compensation for the freed slaves financed by the federal government for several generations. Now, I told you that we today, every black in America should, no matter the education status, if you were black or colored, if you will, black, darkest ones first, and then we get to the light niggas. I'm going crazy now. The darkest one first should be laying on somebody's couch. Because you're crazy as a Looney Tune. Because your ancestors were in slavery, your granny was in slavery, your mama was in slavery, and you in slavery and don't know it. So all of your conditions come from that. Now, other day, Bev, I was listening to Amos Wilson. If anybody get a chance to look up this black cat, he's a historian. He passed. His name is Amos Wilson. That brother's bad. I'm telling you, he's bad. Yeah. He said this, just to give you a little quick example. He said Tim liked orange juice. Fred, Earl, Bruce, and Johnny, when they drink orange juice, they break out in hives and welts. All five belong to one body. And he took it from there and said how they create a nigger. Because they look for those four personalities. They don't fool with Tim, but they wait on those other four personalities, and they send spirits, negative spirits, into the body, and these four personalities will accept it. That's like if you start thinking negative, something negative is going to happen. That negative spirit's coming in your body.
Right.
And if you don't know it's coming, and you ain't got enough sense to be heavy enough to say, get out of here. I love this, I love that, I'm moving on. Get out of here. If you ain't got enough sense to get out of it, your day will turn to crap. And you might get something bad might happen to you. He said they know this, this is back to that European psychology. So they take things like loud music. They take things like football games, all those things, and then they pump into it their advertisements. May they be clothes, television, conduct, all of that. They pump it in there. And you sitting there smiling and laughing and thinking you're going to win some money, and you've been brainwashed.
well, some say that the Super Bowl is one of the biggest rituals it is.
Yes, I've heard that before. I definitely heard that. I got a caller, I think.
Okay.
7763. Let me turn him on. 1137. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
You got a question or comment?
I was. What hit me was everything that you was running, and then when I compared it to the Obamacare healthcare system, it's the same thing. Now you know they told us we had till December 31st to sign up, and now it's February 15th, and the whole process has been co-opted. Think one thing and do something else.
Okay.
And they give us just enough truth. They give us a dash of truth and 100 pounds of lie.
Yes.
And we buy the whole thing.
Buy the whole package. I agree.
And we buy the whole package. That's what when you ran what you ran, because I studied. I did a paper back in high school on Sojourner Truth. And even when I was writing it, it sounded kind of crazy. And the teacher gave me an A. She said it was great. and when you ran it, what you was running, and then when I thought about it, it don't make no sense at all.
Right.
It don't make no sense at all.
Did you write what you were taught?
And
did you write what you were taught, or did you write what the teacher wanted to hear? To get that A.
I wrote about exactly what I read in the book, because I called myself studying it.
Yep, then you got it right. That's why you got that A.
Yeah.
But now when you look at it, you
and
see
then the same thing happened. You know, I studied black cowboys.
Okay.
I never even knew there was black cowboys. And you know where I am. I'm up here in Minnesota, and the black cowboys was up here. There was a black cowboy in North Dakota who was so bad that when he died, they buried him head down. They said if he come back to life, they want him to keep going down the hill.
That wasn't Bill Pickett, was it?
No, that was Deadwood Dick.
Oh yeah, I've heard that name, Deadwood Dick.
Deadwood Dick, and he got a town named after him, Deadwood Dick, South Dakota. And then they named the town after him.
Well,
so
you know,
I'm listening. I think that other dude who was listening, I was trying to figure out who he was, but it don't matter. You know, it don't. The one who didn't want to say nothing, it don't matter.
Right.
But the truth is the truth all the time.
Yes. And
And
all I'm
you
trying
ran
to
that
do
the other day about the Lady Justice with the blindfold on, and the unequal scale.
Yep.
And we never even look at it. She's supposed to be blindfolded. We were told so that she doesn't make any judgment. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
If you don't see, you step into a hole. If I put on a blindfold and drive my car, eventually I'm gonna crash.
I'm gonna bring it. See, you done open up a whole new, not a can of worms, but a whole new package. I'm gonna bring them up to date on that statue of justice, just us. So I appreciate
Lady Justice. When you ran that Lady Justice, and you walk in the court and look at it, you might as well pull your
Goodbye. Yeah, he was. You know, I think I
Ron, I have a caller too.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, area code 941-462. Area code 941.
Hello?
Yes, hello. Yes.
Evening. I was just calling to comment. I missed the first 40, 50 minutes of the show, but I called everything since then. I just want to comment on what you were saying about Amos Wilson. And, you know, that brother there was something else. I mean, I'm reading right now.
Yeah.
I'm reading it again, a book he wrote called The Psychological Development of the Black Child. And in that book, he speaks about
I got
how,
that.
Yeah, good book. he speaks about how the vast majority, about 2/3 of all black people are lactose intolerant. But, you know, school lunch is mandatory they have milk. You know, and everybody, you know, and the way it affects you, it doesn't always make you get the bubble guts and get the shit. You know what I mean? You got to go, you try to the bathroom. Sometimes, you know, you may just start acting foo-foo, you know, all out your mind. So, you know, when you said earlier about, you know, them, you know, picking out the four types of personalities with the allergies and whatnot.
Yeah, the orange.
Yeah, that was so right on, because I'm also a school teacher, so I see this like every single day. You know,
right.
I mean,
right.
every child, damn near every child is on some kind of medicine, or if they're not on medicine, they still diagnosed with, you know, ADHD, DH, whatever that shit is. You know, a whole bunch of different letters. Which is all a bunch of crap if you ask me. But that's all, man. That's all. I'm getting tongue tied now, so. You know, with that I yield it to
Thanks, Paula.
I appreciate. Stay with Amos, brother. That brother's something else, brother. I love him. I was very disappointed when I found out that he had passed.
Yeah.
So stay with him.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let me get back. I hit second, and the second one talks about the finance of the slaves. Now. I already said, if you lose your job Monday morning, you got to have some financial aid. You see what I'm saying? Right. Now, you're talking about 300,000, 600,000, quote-unquote, slaves, but yet you also have another 100,000 slave owners. And the slave owners have a family, and they have debt. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
And then the community that lives off of the plantations, so, you know, like Detroit lived off of auto industry for 40 years. So when the auto industry left, Detroit filed bankruptcy. So now let's go back to this slave crap, talking about this punk called Abe Lincoln. Now Lincoln, with that Emancipation Proclamation, he destroyed all of the economy in the South, which put hundreds of thousands of people in the street. Then he sent troops down, and they came up with stuff like, here's a good one. If you don't have a job and no income, you have to, by law, federal law, sign up for a work camp. The work camp was owned by United States of America. Now remember, they ain't got a damn thing to do with the South, but yet they done started a war with the South, and now they got these million slaves and
90 seconds.
And here I go again with that 90 seconds. Oh yeah, that's a radio block. Everybody that's on the telephone, we're gonna try and make you stay. You can't stay.
Yeah.
And anyone that's on my website, you can continuously see and listen. So when it goes out, it just goes out.
Yeah, the ones on the phone, okay, and the ones that's on your site can listen. Okay, got you.
60 seconds.
Anybody that's listening on blogtalkradio.com will call in before the 60 seconds is up, so you can hear the rest of the show.
Yeah, if they call in right now, they can stay with it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
but
right.
If not, you can go to ronmarch.com. Go to ronmarch.com, and I'm live on my website, and you can hear the remainder of the show on my website. And what we're talking about.
Watch live, yeah. That's right.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You got to go. Once you get to my site, you tap at the top, live, the tab that says live, Ron March Live, and it'll flip right to me. Okay. We're talking about the badges. We're talking about the badges. And I'm going to end this, Andre, as soon as it comes up. It says episode. In the episode. Yep. It's gone. Yep. So that'll do it. Now, I'm still talking about, but you know what? When I shut it down, I turned the phones off. I messed up, didn't I?
Yeah,
no, we
never
hear
in
you.
the episode.
Huh?
Okay,
right.
for our side, people that were called in to the Round March show.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just let it keep going when you're on. Yeah, we'll talk about it offline, though.
All right, good enough. Okay, we're at the top of the hour, but I wanted to finish up a little bit more. Lincoln has got a hell of a record that should be examined from head to toe. And I'm going to tell every one of you, Lincoln did nothing to promote the survival of Black America. Even, listen carefully, in historical revisionism, they went back to the 13th Amendment, and what's the word you use? They fabricated two sections that are not even in by law. I mean, by words, they're not even in the 20 sections of the 13th Amendment. All you got to do is put in 13th Amendment 20 sections, and all sections will come up. You read it for yourself. They don't even talk about nothing about freeing Black people. They even go as far in section 12, it's either 8 or 12, I get it mixed up, that says clearly that the Negro shall never be a citizen of the United States. Now, how can you free me, set up a constitutional law, or better yet, an amendment to protect me, and then you turn around and say, you don't have jurisdiction over me?
Right.
Now, you don't have to have a PhD to deal with that. And every time you see these niggas calling themselves black historians, such as that damn Skip Gates, that cat should be shot at sundown. His name is Gates. He's Obama's beer peanut drinking buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Cripple got that cane. He be limping, dragging his whatever.
But he's doing what he said he's doing. He's telling their story.
He is telling their story. He is a Negro, and he's only a tip of the iceberg because all of your institutions are financed by the corporations, because you have to get a loan, or get not a loan, but a donation.
A grant.
Or a grant.
You gotta get that grant.
That's the word I was looking for. You got to get that grant. And like I said, if your project does not promote white supremacy or white racism, you don't get the money. Simple. And there's more money in grants than you can ever shake a stick at.
Yeah.
Why? Because the corporations are the ones that give up the grant. And Fortune 500 is super rich. And they only promote their livelihood, their own personal life, which is understandable.
Yeah.
But why should we celebrate garbage that does us no good? Let me read the rest of 2 and go into 3 before we go off the air. The second badge would provide that any state wherein slavery now exists shall receive compensation for the freed slave financed by the federal government for several generations. As Lincoln knew, compensation had been used in emancipation throughout South America and in the British, French, and Danish colonies, and even in Washington itself in 1862. I need to look that up. I need to look up somebody. Now that's how you research.
Mm-hmm.
Put in Google compensation Washington D.C. 1862 and see what comes up. The third badge, it would authorize Congress to appropriate money for colonizing free colored persons at any place or places outside of United States. Give me a comment, Biff. Watch your words, because I'll get you. Give me a comment on that. That third badge.
Now, say that one more time. The outside of the what kind of threw me off.
That's right. It says a third badge. It would authorize Congress to appropriate money for colonizing free colored persons at any place or places outside of the United States.
So they don't have no limits then. They can go anywhere.
You got to give me more. What do you mean they can go anywhere?
I mean, they can go outside. They can go outside of the 13 colonies. They can go outside of Washington, D.C.
Now you got it. We can start a business in Michigan and petition the federal government to finance us because of the third badge. But the third badge, they said Lincoln had it ready to go in, and that's when he was killed. So it never got on record, if you will. You understand?
Yeah.
That was one of the reasons why they had to get rid of him, because there were some things that he was doing that either they didn't understand, they didn't want, or it was too advanced for them. Because you did not have a lot of educated people. Most of the people that they talk about when it comes to American history is no more than 1,000 people. Because education was limited among white folks. most of them that came in, I got some data on the indentured servants that came into the United States, and the number rose as high as 1 million in the United States because they needed servants in order to create commerce. And see, that's something that we all don't really understand when you talk about commerce, because when I say commerce, you think of money.
Right.
But if I say commerce is civilization, you have to give it a thought.
Right.
Because civilization, if you have a civilization, you have commerce. If you don't have commerce, you can't have a civilization. How are you going to live and survive? You got to have commerce. You got to have something that's going to promote the growth of your civilization, whatever it may be. So when they use that word back in the day, you have to be careful when they say it. And I'm saying that on the letter that Washington sent to the emperor of the Moorish nation, when he said, I thank you for giving us commerce. In other words, he said, and I'm going to do that next week. We're going to dissect that letter from George Washington to the emperor and how he did that and what was going on back in that time and where did all these so-called indentured servants come from. And the idea, I don't know if I told you, Bev, but the idea of the first lifetime slave, I'm going to call it that for lack of a better term, came from a black slave owner.
Yeah.
And I have the case. And I have the case to prove it. Back in, I think, I'm not sure, 1790s. It might have been later than that, but back in the day, back there, Johnson was his name, Anthony Johnson. And I can't remember who he sued, but he sued somebody that educated his slave, or better yet, his indentured Negro, because the indentured Negro had worked longer than his indentured time, so that the owner of the indentured servant owed him money and freedom. And it was a big court case, and the owner won.
Sound like Anthony Johnson, sound like the guy that was in Django.
You're talking about Samuel Jackson?
Samuel Jackson, yes.
That character, yes.
Yes.
I totally agree.
Now we have another caller, Ron.
All right.
773-396.
Yeah, Ron, Beverly? Yeah, hi.
Yeah.
Hello.
For all of your history and the information that you're giving, it'll pretty shy of a miracle for the people to take to what you're saying is the truth because we're so conditioned. And I really don't knock anyone for their degrees that they've earned and they work so hard for. But when you really learn the truth or at least have a different perspective about how history really is, it's just, in a nutshell, it takes a miracle for anyone to really redirect the way they feel and think. But here's the thing. For all those PhDs out there, the acronym for a PhD is Full House Dummy. And the true acronym for change that Obama kept giving. Now, you ready for this, Ron? The true acronym for change. You ready for this? You sitting down? Change.
Yes. Yep.
Come help a Negro get elected. I'm going to leave it at that. I love you, Ron. I'll be donating as soon as I get my All right, baby, I love you.
Whoa. I love that. Man.
Oh, man.
Let me put that PhD down.
Now, what did she say I was right. What did she say the PhD was?
I'm trying to get it. Dummy was the last one. Please help a dummy.
A Negro, yeah.
A Negro. No, you can't say Negro because there ain't no N. Please help.
Change. She said and change.
Oh,
please.
no. All right. I thought you'd ask me about PhD.
I did. What was PhD? Was poor or something?
Please, I think it was.
Or what?
Oh, she did say poor. Poor, helpless, dummy.
Wait a minute.
I think that deep.
Oh, she's gone now. I was going to
put.
Let me see. Wait a minute. She might still be here. Caller, are you still there? Caller.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. That's not good to hurt me, but I meant for PhD, poorhouse dummy.
Poor. All right. House. Yep. Poorhouse.
Dummy.
Yep. And change?
Change is come help a Negro get elected.
I love it.
Thank you, caller.
You're very welcome, Bev. Love you and love your show.
Love you.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, Bev.
Okay, Ron.
Yeah, that was. I enjoyed tonight, and I felt everybody listening. I think we got it going.
Oh yeah.
All right, the next week.
Okay, I enjoy getting some real education, some real knowledge, not that revise. Say that again. Revisionism. Okay, revisionism.
Yeah, we got to remember that. That revision kills us.
Yes.
And they've been getting away with it. That's revisionist history, and they can make it so complicated that it's difficult to challenge because they keep putting real stuff in it. And if you don't put your mind back in the day of the issue, you'll never catch it.
Right.
And most of us look at our history from today. That's why we have such a problem communicating with each other. And when you mention slavery, all the young kids look at you and say, "Oh, we don't need to talk about slavery. That ain't about nothing. I ain't gonna pick nobody's cotton. White man ain't gonna tell me what to do." All that old kind of crazy crap.
Right.
You know.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
All right, Beth.
All right. It's been a pleasure, and we shall return next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And thank you, Ron.
Right.
Peace and much love.
All right. Peace and love to you, sweetheart.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Join me Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I will have Brother Robert X on. And join me again next Wednesday at 6 p.m., and I will be with Ron March. Until then, peace and much, much love.
Thanks for using WebEx. Please visit our website at www.webex.com.
Roots music for the 21st century. Reality music. Wordstone and power, the Rastaman. From the island of Jamaica to Hawaii, internationally to the world. Reality, oh, reality, na-na, reality, oh yeah. Reality, na 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 na.